Now, as the race to the White House continues to heat up, Hollywood stars have made their leanings clear. From performances to speeches, Hollywood celebrities have not shied away from lending their star power to Democrat nominee Kamala Harris. And Harris's rally in Pennsylvania, in fact, was proof of the same. Lady Gaga performed God Bless America. Other celebrities in attendance were Oprah Winfrey, Katy Perry. The U.S. Vice President is also being backed by Jennifer Lopez, Beyonce, Rihanna, George Clooney, Cardi B, Eminem, Bruce Springsteen, Hollywood's beloved Avengers, and Taylor Swift. In fact, the pop star put her weight behind Harris when she shared a post in her favor soon after the presidential debate. However, Harris is not the only one who is being endorsed by big Hollywood stars, of course. Let's take a look at the celebrities who are endorsing Donald Trump. A slew of them have spoken out in favor of the Republican nominee. The biggest names rallying for Trump, including Hulk Hogan, Jason Aldean, Kid Rock, Kodak Black, John Voight, Russell Brand. While there is, of course, time for the final results, it will be interesting rather to watch out to what extent the celebrity star power and the endorsement by the celebrities actually tilts the balance, if at all. And with us on the broadcast this minute is Adam Schwartz, writer and political commentator with us from London. Adam, thanks very much for being here on the broadcast. I have to ask you for your assessment at this point of the way in which we've seen the two candidates wooing different sections of the voters, and the way the pollsters have been talking about this as a neck-and-neck battle. What to you stood out as far as their last-minute pitches are concerned?
Well, I think, every single US presidential election, both candidates say that this is the most important election in their lifetimes. But I think in the minds of so many people, they really believe that actually this time that really is true. And I think really the main reason for that is the huge gulf in sort of character and temperament and opinion of both main candidates on a whole host of different issues like women's healthcare, like healthcare in general, but even on some issues that aren't even normally in play, like respect for democracy or US maintaining NATO support. So in terms of your question, in terms of the way that the candidates have actually tried to draw up support from their voters last minute, I think they've really leaned into those two kind of main areas, really, to try to really sort of to create some enthusiasm from their base, because really all kind of previous US presidential elections have really shown that that is the way to win. If you don't have enthusiasm amongst your base, you don't have high turnout, it's very, very difficult to actually drive support. And I think it's particularly important when you have according to polls, what is such a close election, what seems like almost like a 50-50 split, that actually that turnout, even of a small sort of 1-2%, could actually make all the difference. So I think really in terms of what we're seeing on this final day when voting's taking place is really a push for turnout from both candidates. And I think obviously it makes a lot of sense, really.
Indeed, Adam, just a short while back, we were outlining for our viewers key developments coming from Israel, where Netanyahu has fired the Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant. This is, of course, coming at a time when Americans are voting. How can we not then, at this point, talk about to what extent the U.S. election outcome will actually impact the situation in West Asia?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an absolutely fascinating question. I think that's one that's sort of partly misunderstood. I mean, both I think Harris and Trump have tried to sort of claim parts of the US electorate that actually care deeply about this issue in the Middle East. We know that both Trump and Harris have appealed to both Jews and Muslims, which when polled actually show that they care most about this issue going on to do with Israel and conflict with the countries and really the regions around it. I think in terms of Harris, I think, probably you'd probably say that, largely she will continue with the kind of policies that Biden has kind of enacted, which is trying to support Israel, but also trying to kind of restrain it in terms of trying to reduce civilian impacts. I think in terms of Trump, it's actually a lot more complicated and nuanced, and largely based on his character. Of course, he tried to present himself as a huge fan of Netanyahu, and really vice versa as well from Netanyahu. But actually, if we look at when Trump was in office, actually him and Netanyahu had a very difficult relationship and often didn't get on some very important issues. So I think, there is a general consensus by the US electorate, so again, polling backs us up, that actually Trump is the kind of pro-Israel candidate. But in fact, I think in reality, it's perfectly possible that actually Trump could even be, in certain situations, actually more critical and put more pressure on the Israeli government. But of course, you mentioned that Netanyahu has fired his defense minister, which is something he's wanted to do for a long time. Of course, Netanyahu has probably likely timed that for the US election, actually. So I think ultimately, it may have a big impact. We know that Trump has said that he wants the war in the Middle East to have stopped by the time he comes into office. I think reality is very difficult for him to do so. But I think in terms of whether we can look at one candidate as kind of pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, and the other, I think it's very, very difficult to do so.
Speaking of domestic issues, Adam, to what extent with the economic issues actually determine the election outcome? We've had a series of polls, talking about the importance of inflation, talking about how these are issues that actually are on the top of the mind of the voters, of course.
Yeah, well, of course, the economy really is, going back decades, is an issue that really tends to be at the top of the voters' list. And of course, American voters feel that way as well. Of course, all over the world, we've seen economies impacted and trying to recover from the COVID pandemic. And of course, to a lesser extent, the Ukraine war. I think the reality is that actually America, when you compare it to other similar sort of industrialized economies, is actually doing pretty well. Even though it had this period of high inflation and sort of low growth, it's actually sort of brought that back to about 3% inflation, but also about 2.9% economic growth, but actually comparatively is very good. But of course, we know that prices don't come down simply because inflation is lower, and therefore you have a period in office where the Democrats have been controlling the federal government, been controlling the presidency, where voters have seen their bills rise. And of course, as inflation, as you mentioned, is really the top main economic issue that voters tend to focus on. So I think really, that is going to be a fundamental issue. Of course, it's accompanied by a whole range of other social issues like women's rights and healthcare that have accompanied that. But I think really, when we see the result, it will really reflect the extent to which the American public is willing to say, you know what, we understand things have been difficult, but actually want to continue down this track with the Democrats, or whether they want to take a bit of a chance with Trump, who's of course promised the greatest economy in history.
Right, Adam, just a short while back, we were outlining for our viewers what the celebrity endorsements have looked like for the two candidates. As always, we've seen a string of those celebrities, supporting either candidate. Just a short while back, we had Trump, in fact, slamming Oprah Winfrey, Harris supporter, saying that she is a divider and claiming that she wanted to run with him as a vice president nominee. Just a quick reaction to that statement.
Well, I think, the kind of jury's out as to whether celebrity endorsements really do impact the vote. But I think certainly one thing that is not going to help is actually attacking celebrities like Trump has done with Oprah Winfrey. We know that she is phenomenally popular among both Republicans and Democrats. And so I think the decision to actually go after her in a very personal way, which is a very typical way that Trump deals with people who don't align with him politically, may actually be a big mistake on his part. But we know that the sort of push to try to get celebrities kind of comes with a general shift in elections in America, which is where generally voters are watching less mainstream news and actually following influencers more or listening to particular podcasts more. I think that has been such an important way that actually you've seen this polarization take place in American politics, where actually people have moved away from those mainstream sources. So I think really all this kind of shift to get celebrities on board is really all part of the kind of polarization taking place in America. But as again, there's so much speculation that's taking place right now, but really we have to wait for results to come in, hopefully in the next few hours, and we'll get a much clearer picture.
Adam, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with those perspectives. In fact, let's cut straight across to Tim Walz. A quick reaction.
Saying, any indicator, he probably will. But I want to remind folks, we have the freest, most secure elections. It's going to take some time to get results. We're going to go up, down, up, down. But at the end of the day, as we always do, we will get the results that we know are accurate. And at that point in time, the winner will be announced and the loser will be announced and work for the winner. We got time for a couple more.
President Harris today. Can you give us a sense of what the campaign internal polling is showing here at the very end?
No, I don't know any of that. And what I tell them, and candidly on this, the internal polling did not matter to me. I had a job to do to go out and make the message. That's what I was concerned with.
Did you speak to Vice President Harris today or last night? How she feeling? What are the conversations?
No, I haven't spoken to her yet, but I was like all of you watching that. The week before, I got the chance to run in Philly, and I ran up those stairs like Rocky or whatever. When I saw she'd set up there, it was golden. So.
Now, you say you'll go to your grave not knowing why this thing is so close. You've been all across the country. Have you got any indicator of why this
Look,
race
it's a divided country. That's what we are. It's a divided country. But I think that the fatigue of Donald Trump, you can feel it out there. Folks are excited about voting, and I just can't describe the difference in the vibe that's out there with folks and how hungry they are for something different. Yeah, they said the numbers are good. We're hearing from our folks there. Everything's working well. Secretary of State says things are working, so we're feeling good.
Governor, when you got up this morning, what were you thinking, and what are you thinking right now? I mean, this is really the day you've been working for.
Yeah, 90 days. I said it seems, kind of closing that loop. My faith in this country has been so restored. I said when I sat in a room like that, I never thought I'd be in Harrisburg in a diner with folks, and how familiar they feel to me, like people I grew up with, people in Mankato, people in St. Paul. And I think that's the beauty of this thing. I think it's lost in all of the noise and all of that is, this is truly a remarkable thing we do every 4 years. I would argue we could probably do it better, but those are questions for other things, how elections, but it's democracy. It's messy, it's beautiful, it's the people, and for me, just my confidence in how things go. So,
what are you watching for as you watch the results tonight? Are there specific counties or demographics, voters?
Look, the team does that, and I think the team that knows me that's something I've never done. I feel like as a candidate, my job is to talk to everybody. I understand how it works, whatever. There's data people that will know this, and Steve Kornacki gets paid to do it, so I'll want, and the rest of you. I'm simply going to go now. We're going to go do some more radio calls. I'm going to take a big, long run and then get back together, and then our team will start putting those numbers together. But look, I would end with this and tell people, this will be won by 1 or 2 votes per precinct in places like Pennsylvania. This is a time when there's a privilege to live in this country and a responsibility. Get out and vote. Exercise that freedom. Exercise that vote. And choose what you know is right, I would ask people. That the opportunity of hopefulness, unity, forward-looking versus this absolute chaos of Donald Trump. We're going to turn the page here. So thank you all. Grateful.
To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.